Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome back to our watch club for Star Wars: The Acolyte. We're not defined by what we lose. We're defined by what we survive. You've survived a lot. Welcome to Watch Club. My name is Nate, and this is our Watch Club for Star Wars: The Acolyte, Episode 4. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, but it's actually, believe it or not, way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and Star Wars in general, so if you haven't watched this week's episode yet, be sure to do so, and then come right back in less than 12 parsecs. Now, before we get attacked by a giant nocturnal Umbra moth, let me introduce you to the lovely Force wielder joining me today. He's igniting his saber right now as we speak. It's not a vape, it's a saber. That's what I'm going with. He's the droidica dropping, death stick popping Darcy, the dank, dewback loving holocron Hudson.
I always love the wrestling intros you give us, and specifically for Star Wars stuff. You seem to go full wrestling mode with Star Wars, and I love it.
Bro, a Star Wars wrestling video game is what you just made me think of. Like, I kind of want that so bad. Like, I'm just thinking Unkar Plutt is going to be kind of the main heel that you kind of have to, like, take down. Bro.
Oh, and then give me that two-headed announcer from the pod race as, like, your in-ring announcer. That'd be great.
So good. So good. How are you doing, man? Good to be back with the Acolyte. There's a lot of controversy going on the internet right now. So if that's what you've tuned in for, well, you might be a little disappointed. We'll dive into a little bit of it regarding a specific character that shows up in this episode. But I think one of the things that this show has done that has been, for the most part, I've seen celebrated by the people that like the show and not talked about by the people that don't, believe it or not, is a new little guy. We got a new little guy in Star Wars, and that's Basil, the tracker. And in this episode, shout out to the Yord Horde. Yord took the time to learn his language. He didn't learn Shuriwook. He learned whatever this language for this little guy is. Darcy, I know one of our other co-hosts, Kevin, your brother, has been learning French in Duolingo. And you and I are prepping for Celebration Japan by learning some Japanese on Duolingo. And that got me wondering, before we get into this episode, Darcy, if there was a Duolingo, if they updated it with languages from a galaxy far, far away, what language are you learning next?
Well, I mean, they already have High Valyrian and Klingon on there, so I wouldn't be surprised if we got a language from the galaxy far, far away. But the thing is with the languages from the galaxy far, far away is I don't hear a pattern. I feel like it'd be incredibly hard to learn, like, Shrirook or whatever this Basil guy speaks. Yeah. For all I know, it just sounds like an animal growling or sniffing and stuff. I don't know if I could do it. I'd probably go more like, for the Mon Cala, maybe. I think that'd be more approachable.
You'd actually be able to tell me what flan is, like their currency, what it's made of. I never know.
Is it a food or I don't know.
Oh man, a currency you could eat would be very interesting.
Also very dangerous. I feel like that's one way to just be like, oh, I'm literally eating through my money right now.
Yes, literally. That brings up a lot of questions. But I think for me, I think the easy answer would be Huttese. I think given that the Hutts have such a huge presence in this galaxy, and I was
thinking about that too. That'd be fun,
right? Because I think if you're, depending on where you fall, like for me, I've always said that I want to be a Coruscant boy, a shiny little lad on Coruscant, like with all the rich people that like are like the capital in Hunger Games. I just want to live that space life. But I think for me, even in that situation, learning Huttese, if I got myself in a jam, that could be really helpful. Because, usually the people that are holding up the people, no offense to all the Hatesian speakers or Huttese speakers out there, but
I mean,
usually they're the ones kind of causing some trouble.
it's a race or planet known for its criminal syndicate, so I don't think you're offending anyone. They know what they do.
Yeah. I think the other language I was thinking would be, honestly, and this is more selfish, I think, would be just learning whatever language R2D2 is speaking.
Binary? I
Is
don't.
that it?
Again,
Binary?
apparently all droids speak binary. If you
Okay.
can't hear them like C-3PO, they
Yeah.
are speaking binary to each
Because I
other.
think
and
I just want to know what that guy's beeping and booping. Like, I think, like, people, talk about Mace Windu potentially, if he ever does come back from his fall, potentially, laying down the first F-bomb in Star Wars. But I'm pretty sure we've already heard it. Like, I'm pretty sure R2's kind of been swearing a storm up.
Yes, apparently R2 is a foul-mouthed little droid. But if you think about how long he's been around, he's probably just saying he's getting too old for this shit.
And I would love to understand him. And then the only other one I was thinking of that I think I do a pretty good impression of is, Darcy, tell me if you know what this species is. Ready? Do you know that one?
Is that the things from Acto? Or
No. It's a Genosian. Remember that guy? And he's like,
oh, yes.
you know that guy?
Yeah, okay. I mean, sure, if you want.
I don't think I'd ever want to go to Genosha, so maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why would you use that language?
Yeah.
It's not like that's a destination spot for me, at least. Or you, Coruscant boy.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, before we get a little guy to smell some old clothing so we can follow him through a forest, let's get to this week's episode, Darcy. We got a lot to go through. This week's episode, titled Day, directed by Alex Garcia Lopez, starts off on Kofar as we see Kelnaka walking into his Shrek house that he's constructed for his swamp that he's constructed for himself. We can see he's cooking up some dinner, but then painted on the walls, we see some familiar markings, and these are the same markings that we've seen on Mother Anasea and on May. So let's stop right there before we keep going. Darcy, why do you think Kelnaka has these markings on his walls?
Well, I think it all comes back to the fact that, like what Torben said before he drank the poison, is that they thought they were doing something right. And I feel like that whatever happened, the night May and Asha were split apart and they followed the covenant and everything like that, it's clearly been haunting him. And maybe he's trying to research the power of the thread, and maybe realizing that the Jedi are, they are, wrong, and that they're the only ones who should use the Force type thing. So I don't know. There's got to be something to do with that night, which again, I hope we get answers too soon, because that is what I want to go back to.
I think we will, and I think you're right on the money there, or right on the credits, I guess, on the Calamarian flan, Darcy, because I think that's absolutely it. We've seen in the trailers a sequence where Kelnaka has ignited his lightsaber. He's jumping, he's leaping through the air towards Torben, and of course we know Torben got all bloodied up in last week's episode. We saw at the very end, and we see him with his scar in his eye in episode 2, and so I think my thought process on that is that Kelnaka was not in charge of his body in that moment. Just like how Torben was brought to his knees by Mother Anasea, I think that Kelnaka is under control or being possessed in that moment. But I think you're absolutely right. I think in that moment, not only was he being possessed, but I think he was being shown something that goes against everything he's ever learned, right? And the idea that Mother Anasea very much talks about, like, pull the thread, like live the life that you want to Osha. But I think the way that they practice the Force, I think it's just something that maybe was awakened in Kelnaka. And so it's something that maybe he's just been obsessed with every single, he kind of took a note out of Yoda's book and hid himself away. And yes, he's haunted by what happened and maybe what he did to Torben. But at the same time, I think he's obsessed with trying to find that answer that he was shown, all that time ago.
Well, especially the fact that, again, Wookiee Jedi are incredibly rare. There have been very few of them because the way they approach the Force is different than any other Force user out there, because they are so in tune with nature as a basis. So I almost feel like this thread being more like it's its own thing, and we just benefit from its symbiosis with us or whatever. I
Hmm.
feel like that's something almost aligns more with the whole Wookiee instinct in him.
Interesting.
So maybe it's something to do with that. Because again, the fact that he chose a big old forest planet to seclude himself away and really get in tune with this mystical power, it feels very, again, like going back to his roots almost, where he came from, the trees that he grew up in type thing.
His roots, literally.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because I think if he was going back to his original route, like I don't know where he was born, but I'm imagining he was probably born on Kashyyyk.
Well, again, he was probably taken very young, and Kashyyyk or whatever, like he was never home to him. So he just went
Maybe.
somewhere that was nature based, and he could find that solitude he was looking for.
See, I think that's it. I think he wanted the best of both worlds. He's
Yes.
ashamed to go to Kashyyyk and be around other Wookiee, but at the same time, he needs that comfort, and maybe that's what Kofar would provide him. I think these symbols are really interesting the way that they're done. I think it's kind of one thing to note is yes, there's kind of like there's two versions of the symbol that we see. They're yin yang symbols, which obviously makes sense, the power of two and what have you. But I also think that if you look at one, it's dots, and the other one kind of looks a little bit more like waves. And so you'll also notice that the dots are usually above the ones that are the waves. I think there's maybe a few waves ones that are kind of off to the side that might ruin my theory here, but it brings me back to the poem between May and Osha of I think it's below, what is it? Below lies above sits the stars and below lies the sea, right? And so the dots kind of
Dots
looking
and
like a
waves.
constellation,
Yeah.
and then the waves kind of underneath. And I'm thinking that, I think it's exactly what we're talking about. He was shown a version of the Force that was just such an awakening for him that he just can't get it out of his mind. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I think he's, I think one thing to kind of think about is that he was always maybe taught, like, don't give in to the dark side. And one thing that we see with the dark side is one of the main reasons, at least, that it's been explained to, from what I'm aware of, to the Jedi, is that it will consume you and it will take you over. But we've seen in other parts of this, more recent Star Wars storytelling that that's not exactly always the case. Yes, you can fall into the dark side, but I believe what he might have seen is something that, he's like, whoa, there is so much more to this that we can access, and I've never been told about it. It's always been it's something that I was against. It's just, I don't know. I'm rambling now, but I think it's really fascinating, and I'm sad that Kalnaka, we'll obviously get to it at the end of the episode, is gone but not forgotten, and his dope tattoos on the side of his head. But okay, let's keep going here. Back on Coruscant, we see Osha watching Jecki as she wraps up a lesson in saber training. Something, by the way, please bring this to Galaxy's Edge, and don't make it just for kids again. Like, bring it for all ages. Find a way. I want to be in that lesson. I want to be swinging those wooden sticks around. She says she's done, and she's done what she needed to do, but she wanted to say goodbye and thank Jecki. Osha says that someone must find May before she does any more harm, but it's not her. She can't. She tells Jecki that next time she's on Coruscant, she'll look her up, and they'll hit up a cantina and maybe trade some stories about Master Soul, which I would love to see as well at the end of this series. Maybe that would be awesome. I just want to see the stories they come up with. Like, remember when he had that boy band hair? And then meanwhile, May and Qimir reach Kofar, and Qimir reminds May that she needs him, and that knowing her sister alive really doesn't change anything about the deal that she made. With only 3 hours of sunlight left, they make their way into the dangerous forest. So it really does seem as though there were some sparks between Jecki and Osha. And then I do want to talk about Chimir's little reminder to May. But before we do, did you sense anything in between the two of them?
I don't know if it was like there was definitely a connection there, but whether it was romantic or just a kinship in the fact that they maybe went through similar things, or again are products of this similar upbringing. So again, it's very something you can relate about very early on. So maybe that was what it was, and Jeki's just, curious about the outside world, having grown up in the temple. This former Jedi is now, or Padawan is now entering her life. Maybe that's why she wanted to hang out with her a bit more, to get more, pick her brain more, and learn more about the wider galaxy.
Yeah, you
But
can definitely actually that makes a lot of sense, right? You can definitely see the attractiveness of an outsider in a way, right? But also
mhm.
someone that you can still relate to and
Exactly, that's
understands
what I'm saying. It's
what
the
you went through.
same like origin almost, but different paths, and that's why that story would be so interesting to her at least.
That's cool. Yeah, it seems like she definitely, regardless, she made an impact on her, and I think it's probably the easiest of the three goodbyes that she would have to do. I mean, Yord would probably just give her a lecture, and she's
Hmm.
like, I don't need
Hmm.
that from Yord. And then with Soul, I mean, she doesn't want to say goodbye to him, right? She feels like she's caused him enough issues, and that would only make things worse, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Something along those lines, but yeah, it just seemed like a weird place to stick it in this episode, given what comes later on. But I guess they didn't
Yes.
know at this point in time. But it was very weird to be like, okay, so she's not going, and then the next time you see her, she is going. It's like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, and I remember reading a review. I can't remember who it was, but I remember reading a review about the first four episodes of this series, talking about how there's a level of characters sort of giving up on their morals, or they very fervently believe one thing, and then the next scene they kind of don't.
Hmm.
And I get that. I can see how that kind of, and that sort of adds to the clunkiness of this episode and adds to the clunkiness of these characters and sort of what they're going through. I think it, you know, I do think that is kind of growing pains for this style of storytelling in Star Wars. I'm not to say that it's okay to do that. Obviously we always want our stories to be the best that they possibly can in this galaxy, but I think it is something that, like, hopefully they find their footing, and we don't really see too much of that going forward, because I think by the time we get to the end of this episode, if we get more wishy-washy back and forth, it's going to be really frustrating.
Because by that point, I've been enough time establishing these characters. I just want to like tell the story without this weird back and forth being like they're gonna do this. Never mind, we're not gonna do this type thing.
Yeah.
Just do something, commit to it, tell a story type thing. And
Yeah.
again, with the way this episode leaves off, I hope episode 5 really lands because it needs to.
It needs to. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I want to get back to Qimir
Yes.
telling May, that he still needs him, or she still needs him, and not only that, but Osha being alive doesn't change anything. And I think it's interesting because he's really interesting in this episode. He went into a dangerous forest by himself to find a Wookiee Jedi, right? And he says bounty hunters won't even step foot in this forest. And so it just seems so suspicious, and you have to wonder if he's maybe starting to sense May's doubt even more in this scene, as he tells her not to dwell on her sister, saying it shouldn't change the situation. And I think in a sense it's interesting because he's kind of foreseeing what is going to happen, right?
Hmm.
And how, and so I think that's maybe him sort of just going like, don't think about that. Stop thinking about that, because it's going to go
Yeah.
against his goals, or whatever his goals are.
Yeah, I mean this whole episode is just they're either painting him out to be related to this red lightsaber wielder we see, or he is just a complete red herring and has a completely different story that we probably will never learn if that's the case.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, this episode alone has really raised those questions like what is his deal and will we find it out?
It's going to be interesting. I've got a little bit more to say on that for sure, and I'm sure you do too. But
Hmm.
let's keep going here. Back at the Jedi Temple, we see Master Holden question if May and her unknown master could be part of a splinter cell. Master Vernestra enters and says she's eluded Soul and killed 2 Jedi Masters so far. She thinks a Jedi has taught May. It's suggested that they inform the High Council, but she declines that idea, saying it would inspire fear and mistrust, and that they should handle this themselves, saying we must learn who trained her. She commands Master Holden to extract Kelnaka from his post on Kofar and intercept May. Soul confronts Vernestra, and she's livid with him, asking him why he never told her 16 years ago that there was a chance that May survived. He says he saw her fall and that no one could have survived that. And he asks Vernestra if he can be the one to bring in May, and Vernestra asks him to take Osha as bait to bait May into engaging with them, hopefully without violence. So obviously, we want to get to the big, tall, cone-headed elephant in the room. But before we
The
do,
Syrian elephant in
the
the
Syrian
room.
elephant, yeah, which is funny because I heard the him being called a Syrian. And I'm like, he's not from Syria, but he's a like
Yeah.
Cerean. But before we get to that Syrian elephant, why do you think Vernestra suspects that it's one of their own Jedi that formed a splinter order?
Well, in this timeline, we are seeing a Jedi Order that has, again, this is within 100 years of the greatest catastrophe that has ever fallen on the Jedi Order, and kind of shattered their illusion of immortality or infallibility across the galaxy.
Mm.
And we're seeing a very militarized almost Jedi Order. We saw earlier with the way those kids are doing those forms, and it's all about minimalizing defense and all this stuff, and you're basically raising children are soldiers, which we saw in the Clone Wars, but those are all clones, so it's okay. It's very weird to see the Jedi doing this type of thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of Jedi at this point were disillusioned, like the Way Seekers and the other outskirts who were more on the let's ask questions before we react type thing.
Mm-hmm.
They would probably have a problem with this, and be willing to go their own ways. And who knows how the Jedi Order treats these people once they've left, because again, in the High Republic, there was Jedi who turned a bounty hunter and sided with the wrong people, just for money, basically. So it is possible that that's what they're still dealing with.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's intriguing, the idea of sort of how Vernestra is in seemingly every opportunity to raise alerts to the Jedi High Council, she doesn't want to. And I understand that, she's probably hoping to join the council one day and, wants to maybe prove herself or what have you. And maybe this is kind of a look at doing that. Oh, we shouldn't, kind of similar to how Osha didn't want to, bother Sol anymore. Maybe she doesn't want to bother the High Council, doesn't want to bother Yoda. But, I think it's interesting. I think she's so quick to act and speak on this like she kind of similar to how she asked Sol for discretion immediately after Indara was murdered. She's like, don't talk about this, don't tell anyone. So I just get the sense that there's something going on, and I'm starting to wonder if she's directly involved with May and the Stark Master. I think when we look at Palpatine, when we look at him pulling all the different strings as the master puppeteer that he is, that's not something that I believe he invented. You know what I mean?
It's very much the whole Sith rule of two. That's
Right.
what made it possible. Was the fact that it was a puppeteer and his apprentice who'd go and get his hands dirty, so that puppeteer could remain hidden in the shadows. So I definitely think that something's going on here, and even the way that Sol's reacting this episode, and the fact that he wants to use Asha as bait, not a very Jedi thing to do.
Well, no. So here's the thing, though. I don't think that wasn't his idea. That was Vernestra's idea. She says to him, do we have something she wants? And basically planting the idea to take Osha. And I think that that's very much on purpose. How do we get Sol, May, and Osha on Kofar all at the same time? Right? And so I think that that's kind of what's going on here. I think she's playing on that side, and the only part of me that makes me feel like I could be wrong is just and I've only heard this from yourself and from other book readers of the High Republic, is that she does seem like a generally liked or beloved character from that book series.
Yes, again, it's 100 years or so have passed. So who knows what have happened in the last time we saw her as a Padawan in the early High Republic storytelling series, at least. So it's I don't know what happened to her, if she did go down this dark path, or when this Dark Master kind of sunk his teeth in. And maybe again, I wouldn't be surprised if we're going, I'm going to go back to that Syrian elephant in the room.
Yeah, we're about
because
to.
I feel like that's what a lot of people are concerned about, is the fact that he drops the whole. He is the one who says there haven't been Sith for a millennia, or they've been extinct for a millennia.
Yeah,
and he is at a relatively high position on the council in this point, or at least in the Order, and they're dealing with this possibly dark side trained user. It seems weird that if they aren't going to call them Sith in this show, that or if they do call them Sith in this show, that he wouldn't remember that going forward unless he's trying to cover up the failings of the Jedi Order. So that's one way I can see them going.
Yeah.
But I can also see them going a different way where this isn't actually the Sith, or the Sith find a way to have it pinned on the Witch Coven or another sect of Force users where it isn't the Sith who were doing it. It was another dark side thing that they tamped out. The Sith are still dead. We're all good type thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because I think to your point, that would be very much that could be a possible out for what Vernestra is doing. She's following the order of the Jedi Council, who's saying, "Hey, don't do this." And if you think about Ki-Adi Mundi isn't on the Jedi Council at this point either. If he was, then she wouldn't be talking in front of him about not telling the Jedi Council. So yeah, I think that's very much true. I think either. You're right. I think one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to rewatch The Phantom Menace in the future after this series and go, damn, Ki-Adi Mundi is a terrible actor. Like, not the actual actor, but the character is a terrible.
That is like that subtle line. Is like that. What I don't buy it, man.
Yeah,
not
bro.
good.
Stop winking. He's like winking a few times or something. George goes, somebody at Lucasfilm goes back and like adds like a digital version of him winking or something. But then no, I think the other option is something happens and yeah, he's never made fully aware. And I think just him being in this episode has caused so many
It's
uproars.
so unnecessary for what he does, which is nothing. Any other Jedi standing there could have served the same purpose. It didn't need to be someone we knew.
Yeah. And I think that
or at least someone we knew who said something that stupid. Like
right, but I think that's the thing. It's there's all these there's some folks who would consider themselves George Lucas purists, if you will, and are upset. Oh, they're changing the canon. Last week they undermined Anakin being the chosen one. All this sort of nonsense. If I'm being perfectly honest, you can have your criticism of the way the show is made, but the way it's written. George Lucas didn't write this. It's fine. Relax. Everybody calm down. They're not undoing what happened. It just is something that we don't fully know about yet. And that's the other thing too. I find a lot of folks with this show are jumping to conclusions. We're only 4 episodes in. Granted, we are halfway through this season, but who knows how long the show is going to go for, how long until we do find out exactly what it means that the way May and Osha were born. And again, it's just one of these things that so many people are upset about the conclusions that they're jumping to. And I don't think that's the right way to go about watching a mystery show.
Yes, that was my big thing. I was going to say it's a mystery show. They clearly laid it out, and it was pitched as a murder mystery show, but after these 4 episodes, we are seeing the murders happen, and now we have the prime suspect, but wait, they're subverting our expectations like a regular mystery would. So
yeah,
there is a story to be told here, and I just hope 5 really kicks that story into gear, because we have all the players set up, like you said, Vernestra maybe, or ever, are getting all these people involved in that one night in one place again. What's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Right. And I mean, in one of the trailers, another thing that people freaked out about, her lightsaber being a lightsaber whip, which is from the book. So calm down, everyone. But I think, it's okay to be excited about it, but to be upset with it for something that's been established is silly. But she's on a forest planet. Right. And so yeah, I'm really thinking we're all going to be kind of, it's all going to go down on Kofar in some way. But I think as far as Ki-Adi Mundi is concerned, listen, his age was established in a book that is now Legends. This show, or this galaxy, this world, everything about it has been handed over to a different group of people, and they're going to write it a different way, and that's just how it is. So don't be too upset that Ki-Adi Mundi is there, okay? He's we'll figure it out. I get what you're saying, Darcy, about like it literally could have been any other Jedi and they could have avoided this, but I think the whole idea is that they're including him here not to add salt to the wound for people that don't like that concept,
but just to help build this idea that there is a cover-up happening,
exactly.
And he was not involved in it, or
he was.
There's, again, people are keeping secrets within the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
This is, again, beginning of the downfall.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going here. Qimir and May make their way towards the perimeter of the forest, and they discuss May's progress on their master's plan. May asks about Osha, and Qimir tells her that she seems in over her head, and that she seemed really fond of that one Jedi. What was his name again? Soul, Master Soul. May pauses for a beat and then continues on. Back on Coruscant, Soul finds Osha leaving and catches her off guard. She apologizes for not saying goodbye, and he asks for her help with the mission. Osha declines, saying she can't, but he tells her when he told May that she was still alive, that May's eyes softened. He says there's still good in her, the part that loves you. Osha says she's a murderer, and Soul convinces her, saying, but she is still your family. So, what did you think of the interaction between, Qimir and May regarding the Master's plan? And then we'll also talk a little bit about Osha's fondness for Soul, seemingly triggering something in May. What did you think of that exchange there?
Well, I mean, what I think is weird is Qimir probably didn't get that from his interaction with Osha in, was it episode 2 or whatever, episode 1?
I went back to episode 2. The name Soul is never mentioned.
Exactly. So I don't think it
Yeah.
happened there. So clearly his master or whoever that he's working with has information about what happened on that first night and knows that Soul is the one that Asha like immediately was drawn to when they first came and were testing them and stuff like that. So I feel like if there is a name drop or whatever to piss her off, it would be Soul, especially because she maybe saw him running to save Asha and let her fall type thing, especially at the end of that night or whatever. We don't know what she saw before she fell. So again, I think it's more, that's where her hatred is. Like if she hates Jedi, the Jedi that has a face that she can hate the most is Soul. So I think that's why he's like saving the best for last type thing. Like she's the one that she wants to confront him when she's already taken off everybody else and can really put him in his place, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? I think, again, I'm going to go back and forth this entire episode on whether Qimir is the Dark Master or not, because I honestly have arguments for either. But one thing that is interesting, again, bringing up the Palpatine of it all. Palpatine knew the exact words at the exact time to get people to do what he wanted. He going all the way back to to keep people from dying, like that. Even just the line delivery is so good there. But the way that he says that, it's just like, I know exactly what
there
you
was
don't
a bit
want
of a
to happen
head turn
in
when
here.
he said May too.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a Pelpy head turn there.
Right? He's had a few palpy head turns in this series and in this episode, but I think again, you could also argue the idea, Darcy, that yes, the Dark Master, whoever he could be working with, is feeding him more information so that he can lead May more directly. He says in a really interesting line, you know how he is. He collects people. And he said it so easily and so confidently. And I think it's because he wasn't talking about who May thinks the master is, but maybe his own master, right? And again, this is where I'm flip-flopping back and forth because, maybe he's talking about Plagueis potentially in that moment, but knows that May is thinking of the Dark Master. Like he's able to lie so well because he's not lying. He's telling the truth just from his understanding.
This is just like
of it.
he's from the Sith side and just using these people to again cause chaos in the Jedi Order while keeping the Sith hidden.
Exactly.
Which would be again what would fit.
Yeah.
I would love to see that type of story. Again, this episode 5 needs to shed some light on what happened that night.
Hopefully, hurry up. I do also want to call out the Tarlafar in the background with the scene with Osha and Soul.
Yeah.
Come on, we got another Tarlafar. We're getting this is the year of Tarlafars.
They're popping up everywhere now.
This is the year of they were in Solo. They were in the Bad Batch's final season. It's always so good to see Tarlafar representation in Star Wars. And I will say I was a little disappointed they weren't wearing a gold cloak. I kind of wanted it to be a Jedi Tarlafar. We got a Jedi Wookiee, so many times now. Now just give me a Jedi Tarlafar. But still must have been a Tarlafar of status, walking around the temple like that. So.
If you're in the temple, you're related to Jedi in some way.
Maybe there is a Tarlafar nephew that they were visiting, who knows? There was a Jedi. I don't know. On the flight over to Kofar, we see Osha's pip droid nervous of Basil, causing Osha to become distracted while Yord provides his briefing. They land, and Jecki immediately attempts to communicate with a local junk trader. Yord and Osha argue over her holding onto a blaster, and Jecki informs them that Kelnaka ventured off into the forest and never came back. The Jedi all look out into the forest as the music becomes more ominous. Just really quickly, we tried to look it up in the credits. That is not Master Plo Koon. It is just another.
I mean, to me, the giveaway was later on when his lightsaber was green.
Right.
Because
Okay. Yes. Because
yeah.
and correct me if I'm wrong, Darcy. Short of maybe going from the light to the dark, Jedi would never, or a Force user that wields a lightsaber usually would never change the
No,
color of their
again,
lightsaber.
Anakin and Obi-Wan losing theirs so many times was unique to Jedi. They usually
Sure.
treat them with a lot more respect.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then as the music becomes more ominous, they look into the forest. They use Basil as a tracker to make their way to the right side of the forest. Well, on the way, Yord expresses his concern for Osha's safety. She asks him that if it comes to it and May doesn't listen, she needs him to stop her, saying that she won't be able to. Yord says that maybe Sol brought her with them to face her, but that he also may have brought her there to face herself. Yord trying to be all wisdom. Uh, well, Qimir and May make their way into the forest. So do the Jedi. The Jedi walk through a nest of a bunch of sleeping Umbra moths, and Osha holds her hand to one. It wakes up and slithers up the tree and then attacks them, and Sol slices it in half. May laments to Jecki that she was able to sense that creature, but she disturbed it, and now it's dead. Jecki reminds her that they aren't defined by what they lose, but that they're defined by what they survive, and says, "You've survived a lot." So let's talk about this sequence here, Darcy. Anything you want to go over? But I kind of wanted to ask, what do you think Osha means when she tells Jecki she sensed it, disturbed it, and now it's dead? Because to me, I was getting a vibe of potentially her thinking of May in that moment, and maybe worried about that, or worried about harm to come in the future, something like that. I don't know.
No, to me, I think it was more just the fact that she's spending more time with the Jedi. Again, she's maybe opening herself up to the Force a bit more,
Hmm.
and this is the first time she felt life. And again, that was the only one we saw. There were way more on those trees. If it was their presence that woke them up, there would have been a swarm attacking, not just a singular one.
True.
So I think she more just feels responsible. Like she reached out to the Force, and this is what it did again. So like every time she tries to connect, maybe it doesn't go well for her, and that's why she really feels like she doesn't belong with the Order, is because of this connection she has to it, where she tries to access it, and it always ends poorly for someone.
I like that. I like that. I mean, I think I mentioned last week how I thought that Osha was maybe a little more elemental nature in terms of her connection to the Force, and I think this sequence gives me that feeling even more. Her connection to the Umbra Moth, and then even learning that most Jedi, that was an interesting thing to learn, most Jedi, at least from this time period, maybe not in the future, learn Shuriwook, but that Yord learned the language of Basil, which they are called the Tinnin, Tynnan. I think that's how it's pronounced. But I think it just continues to show that connection that Jedi seem to share with nature, and how it might be, that specifically might be tied to the light side of the Force, right? As if a connection to Wookiees and Tinnin and creatures in general isn't something that maybe dark side wielders focus on as much, but more light side. Does that kind of make sense?
Well, I mean, that is the life side of things too. Is like all life comes from nature. No matter what planet you're on, whether it's the trees or the oceans or whatever, life will come from that, and that very much represents the light side of the Force prevailing in the darkest of times type thing. So that's what I got. To me, what I found interesting about this exchange is the fact that Jecki is almost doubling down on this whole thing that these are child soldiers, and that they're supposed to rejoice that you, or like just celebrate the fact that you witnessed someone become entering the Force.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what they say to these kids, so they don't get scarred or traumatized when they see their friends and like
They don't form
partners
attachments.
die.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is, again, going back to Sol's conversation to get Osha to come with them, saying it's your family. And it's like, that is like, are you only saying that because she's not Jedi? Why do you believe that? Like that's not something a Jedi should force or be teaching. So like,
Is
again,
it something is it something that he's always felt? Maybe
is
since
it
that
something that
moment.
or is he something he's come to realize after what he's done to the family,
Right.
and like dwelling on it, like Torben meditating and Kalnaka going into the forest? Like, what is
Interesting.
how has he dealt with what happened that night? And maybe does that have something to do with why he put the emphasis on family when Jedi aren't supposed to have that? Again, with Jecki doubling down on that, with that whole reaction to Asha's state of mind at that time.
And even going back to what we were talking about earlier with Jackie, there's such an attraction to Osha, this person that has found another way to
Hmm.
to live and sees things differently than her. And it's really interesting because I think it's this sort of these two sort of meeting in the middle almost with where the conversation resolves, in the sense that sure, yeah, Jackie kind of starts off the conversation by saying like something that's like totally like terrifyingly upsetting for
Hmm.
her to believe so wholeheartedly, but she does come around the other side of it and
Yeah.
sensing the loss in Osha. And I think that's, again, it kind of goes to show that I don't think this show is going to demonize the Jedi or the Jedi Order. Rather, I think it's going to just show that there have always been flaws, and we know there have always been flaws. And Luke came to that realization, and a lot of people got upset, but but like it's the truth. And I think it also speaks to the concept of modern day religions and looking at the different beliefs of different people and understanding that not everything in their belief system should be necessarily followed, but there are still maybe some really good things to take from them. And so I think it's
Hmm.
kind of it's just an interesting mirror for them to be holding up to show I think specifically with this conversation with Jackie and Osha, I thought it was really, really well done.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I do want to just quickly tie back though. I think that like you're saying, she's starting to feel more of the force. She's starting to let herself kind of connect with it more. But I think she's doing that and that's happening to her, but she's not fully totally aware of it. We do get to that moment in a conversation further in the episode where she says like I'm starting to sense things more now. But I do think like even just her conversation with Yord and then this conversation with Jackie, I think this is something in her that she's not fully aware of by that point in the episode. Um, and I think it is a bit of foresight. I think it is a little bit of sort of this concept of like, if we keep going, if we keep pushing, if I keep pushing, then someone's going to die. And I
Hmm.
really do think episode 5, we're gonna get some deaths.
Hmm.
I think there's gonna be some murders in this murder mystery. But let's keep going here. I've adjusted the next section just for conversation's sake. So it might be a little out of order comparative to the episode, but May and Qimir take a short break, and May continues to question their master's plan. Qimir tries to convince her that her task is not impossible. She says if she doesn't complete it, the master will kill her. Qimir calms her and says he's going to go get her some water. She's right. She needs to rest. She needs to rest up for this big battle. So he leaves her. And later, both Qimir and the Jedi hear May screaming for help. Qimir rushes to find her and ends up in a trap that May set for him. She says she realized she doesn't need to do this anymore. She doesn't need to kill a Jedi without a weapon, and she doesn't have to keep the deal. She says she's going to surrender herself to Kelnaka, and Qimir says they'll put you in prison. And she responds with, not after I tell them who I know. Qimir says he'll kill you, and May walks off into the forest. So I wanted to kind of dig into this a little bit, Darcy. I mean, we kind of have been talking about this the entire time, but who do you think is the who in the line, not after I tell them who I know? Because she doesn't know the Dark Master. So who is the who she knows?
I'm thinking maybe it's some former Jedi that we would be introduced to. Maybe that might be the reason why they're convinced it's a former Jedi. Maybe this is someone who had a falling out
Oh,
because of how he reacted to what happened that night, or because why he sent them there. I don't know. Maybe
interesting.
we'll see something along those lines. But I have a feeling that whoever she knows is related to the Jedi Order, and that's why it'll be such a big, it's such a juicy piece of information. Is because he's trying to stay hidden because he doesn't want to go against them again because there's still a very strong force that he maybe can't handle at this moment. I don't know.
That's really
Anyways,
intriguing. Well, no, because
that's what I was thinking personally.
I like that because I think it's the idea of, yeah, like, because I think even in that meeting that they're having, Vernestra and all the other Jedi and Kiadi Mundi, they're talking about, yeah, I think they mentioned something like, yeah, she's trained like a Jedi,
Hmm.
but she also acts. I think they say something like she acts with passion, or she acts with something like that. And
Yeah, yeah.
they're very much, because that would very much be the Sith side of her, or the dark side kind of in her. So that is really, really intriguing. And I think, yeah, the idea of it being potentially another Jedi. I know there are theories out there, that Soul might have a twin. Have you seen this? It's like some,
I have seen that, which
yeah,
would be interesting, and like, the fact that his name means sun, and if his twin's name is something to do with moon, it would go with the
Loon or
whole.
something, right? Like,
Yeah, I
be
would.
kind of
It
neat.
would make sense. It'd be a cool parallel, and that's maybe why he has such a connection to family.
Yeah,
It's because he lost his brother, but his brother's been like very much like May and Osha or something like that. I
yeah,
don't know. I,
interesting.
if that is the thing, they better do a damn good job of explaining.
Yes. The only other thing I can think of is she knows Plagueis. Like, she knows the
Mm,
master's master.
yeah.
To me, I do feel as though Soul, digging around in her mind, might have been able to get that out of her, but the fact that, maybe he was just looking at her direct report. I don't know. I don't know how Jedi mind searches
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, neither do I. So I don't know if
So,
it's I don't think it's as easy as Google.
yeah, that'd be awesome if it was. Okay, let's get to kind of this final section and kind of our final predictions for this episode. With the Jedi searching for Basil, Soul feels something in the Force. He reminds Osha that she's not going to face May; she's going to face her past. Both of them will, and that as soon as they get May back to the ship, don't worry, he's going to explain everything. I don't think they're going to get back to the ship, unfortunately. May runs into Basil, who screams, alerting the Jedi of her location. She runs into Kelnaka's home and discovers he's dead in his chair, cut through by a lightsaber. She quietly says, in utter terror, "He's here." The lights quickly disappear outside. The Jedi call May out, but as soon as they do, Soul senses something behind them. They turn to see a dark figure floating down from the forest treetop, and it slowly approaches Osha. The Master slowly walks towards her, ignoring the Jedi's request to identify himself and stand down. He ignites his lightsaber, and Soul yells to Osha to run. With a flick of his finger, he throws Osha to the side, and then pushes all 8 Jedi back with a massive blast. And then we cut to like the creepiest, scariest music that we've gotten in this series so far. Darcy, what did you think of this terrifying final sequence? And your final, it might not be your final because we might not figure out next week who the Dark Master is, but maybe your sort of final prediction for now as to who the Master really is. What do you foresee happening next?
Well, again, I doubt that what I'm saying is going to come to fruition, but the way that they are painting this episode, I don't know if like this is the Dark Master per se, if this is just who's been using Osha as like a tool, me as a tool to, concoct these Sith plans. I feel like it's Qimir though. I mean, the robes and just the fact that like as they were progressing on that through their journey, the hair coming down and his smile becoming wider, and then seeing that reveal of that wide mask.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it seems too good to be true that that would be him. But this is why I'm excited for episode 5, is because this, whatever comes out of this conflict, will be the beginning of answers for why this conflict is happening in the first place. So that is all I want to get to personally, because I whoever the Master is, I'm sure I'll be happy with the way they explain it, because the way they're presenting him so far is so freaking cool.
Yeah, I think the thing is like, if it is Qimir, I think that because it's kind of so obvious, and I've heard so many other people talking about this show, speculating after this episode, especially that it is Qimir. And I think if it is indeed Qimir, because of how easy it is to figure that out, he's not the problem.
Exactly. He can't be the
He's
one.
not the big bad. He's not the sort of the most terrifying force in this show. And granted, this sequence was scary. I want to shout out that lighting change from sunset to darkness as May says he's here. It's so cool. It reminded me of one of my favorite moments, one of the saddest moments in Force Awakens, but when Kylo Ren or Ben says to his father, "Thank you." and the lights just go to from like blue to red, and she just stabs him through and murders him. And the fear in May's eyes, again, shout out to Amanda Stenberg for just killing it with her facial reactions, and more specifically her eyes. Again, in this series, I think the tension just goes right up in that moment. And this is
Mhm.
kind of what I'm talking about when I say I want more horror vibes in Star Wars. This was like perfect for that. I think it was the right amount of sort of that intense feeling, and the creepy sort of almost like whenever you see spiders on screen and you hear the violins, like that's literally that's literally what Michael
Your
Abels.
go-to tension building like tones,
Yes,
basically.
Michael Abels just knocked it out with that, and it was interesting to see if you watch May closely. She actually hears the Dark Master approaching, just before Soul senses him. Like there's like this like noise, and May like actively looks back before
Yeah,
looking back through the
yeah.
door. So I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. My whole again, I'm going back to this when they're charging, when like Soul says like they all ignite their lightsabers and start running.
Yeah,
Especially after what we saw them in the lightsaber training and how it's all about maximizing defense while minimizing movement. And then all these Jedi just wing out their lightsabers and start charging. It's
yeah,
like that is the least like prepared or cautious technique I've ever seen.
yeah.
Like where did that training go, and why is this the immediate response to single person wielding a lightsaber? And
I think I have the
just
answer for
again,
that.
okay,
Fear.
I guess
They're
so.
experiencing fear, and they're honestly, say what you will about Soul's experiences, but all those other Jedi, I don't think any of them have had to really be worried or scared before, in their lives. They've
Mm,
been training and training and training, and maybe they've gone on missions that have been scary or what have you, but nothing like this. Like this is
mhm.
horribly terrifying. The way he just floats down, and it's so quiet, and just a flick of the wrist. Like this master, this master, maybe acolyte, maybe apprentice, who knows, is incredibly powerful. And again, if it is Qimir, and if he's not the big bad, that just means that like they're really setting up someone to be even crazier powerful,
Mhm.
or more powerful
Mhm.
than them. I keep going back and forth in my mind if Qimir is, but looking at like freeze framing it, looking at the hands of this Dark Master, they look very human, very Qimir. The arms look very Jason Mendoza, from The Good Place. We rewatched all The Good Place just recently. But I will say the other thing that sort of also gives me a little bit of doubt, and there was such an emphasis on the witch's magic, at the beginning of this episode, are the fingers. If you look really closely, and I understand this is a very dark sequence and it's very hard to tell, but the fingers look dirty. The fingers look
Mhm.
blackened. And when I think about blackened fingers, the last time we saw this was last week with the witches and their fingers. So either maybe it's someone from there, or something about the way that they tap into the Force that this dark side user has either taught them or learned from. Maybe that's how it affects them. Very
Mm.
similar to how we've seen witch magic, like, in the MCU. I think about how dark Agatha's hands would get, or what have you.
Mhm.
And then I think, just to kind of like, I think, yeah, as far as next episode, as far as next steps, you're right. It needs to be terrifying. Like I think it needs to be scary. I think it needs to give us a few answers, but I really do think it's going to embrace the thriller aspect, the horror aspect, with these Jedi hiding. Like there's a reason they brought all these random Jedi, and it's because they can't
Mhm.
kill Jekki, they can't kill Yord. The Yord Horde would rise up. I don't think they can kill Soul. Maybe they can, but the idea being that like they've got a lot of fodder to work with. We're gonna see some Jedi's getting murked for sure.
Oh yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of those three also is mortally wounded in the escape,
For sure.
because again, we've been growing attached to these characters for a reason, and if one of them falls, that would raise the
Yeah.
stakes.
Yeah. Maybe Yord. Maybe something with Yord.
Yeah, so that's
Yordhorde.
what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Look out, Yordhorde. I hope someone gets stabbed through that we care about, and then the next episode they're perfectly fine, and the whole fandom just gets really upset, because that could happen too. But I think what's going to happen is I'm hoping episode 5 is our action-filled murder episode, and then episode 6 is our second look at Brendok. Like I think we end episode 5 with a big reveal or a name drop or something. And then we're like, I want to know immediately more about that. And then they're like, nah, too bad. We're going to go back in time and show you this other stuff that you want to know about. And that's okay too. But I could see them doing that because it did feel like when we got to episode 3, it sort of did feel like it's kind of a weird place to put this. And I think they're going to replicate that again with episode 6, but maybe it'll be more welcomed because, again, I want to know what that other side of that story was.
Well, especially with this week's episode title being day, you know that the next one's
Night.
got to be night.
Come
with the fact that
on.
the sun just set on this, and we're gonna get
And Soul
That's-
and
it's-
Moon, bro.
like
Yo.
it's setting itself up. Dude, Soul's got a twin brother. It's happening, man.
Okay, now you're getting me on a Mephisto train. Okay, it's we're getting there. That would be pretty fantastic. Okay, let's get to our overall thoughts of this episode. We're gonna wrap things up here. We're going a little longer for usually when there's just two of us, we don't go this long. But listen, we had a lot to say for this episode.
It's a good episode.
It was. Let me know what were your sort of final thoughts of this episode. We're not going to do a score. We're going to save that till the finale of this show. But what did you think of episode 4 Day?
Again, I think if this is the final episode of setting up the big story, I think it did a great job of finally really, again, bringing everything to that tipping point that we will see in the next episode.
Mhm.
So while it was clunky in some of the back and forth, like I said, where they said they're not going to do something and then they
They
do,
did
and then even Osha's like, I'm not going to wear those civilian robes. And then it cuts to her wearing the civilian
Yeah,
robes.
for
Like,
comedy, but it didn't really land.
that joke doesn't land anymore to me.
Yeah.
Again, maybe I'm jaded. We watch a lot of things, but like that I don't know. There's some clunkiness to the episode and the writing where I'm just like, I understand why people can easily pick apart things in
For
this
sure.
show, but the greater scheme of things, the story they're setting up has such potential to be such a cool and interesting story in the Star Wars universe
Mhm.
that, again, I'm really looking forward to what comes next, and I really hope that 5 lands as hard as they're saying it is, because even Leslie Helen's gone on record saying that episode 5 is the one that everyone will be talking about. So I cannot wait for next week.
Yeah, I really do think that could be it, and I think it's one of two things: either what happened on Brendok, or this night, right? This night
Mhm.
of that would be perfect. But the night of all these Jedi dying, and I really could see it being a shock value kind of thing.
Mhm.
I don't think it could reach Red Wedding heights, but that vibe, right? That idea of
Yeah.
like, holy, like they're doing this.
You're just left in awe
They're doing
where
this.
they went.
No way.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get there. I hope I'm not setting my expectations too high for something like that. She did say that it was going to feature a really fantastic action sequence in episode 5 as well. I think, to the idea of this episode, very, very much some clunky stuff. I think the ending obviously was the strongest moment. And also kind of back and forth where it didn't feel 100% necessary. Like they cut to May and Qimir not even having a line of dialogue, just walking into the forest so that we know that they're going into the
they've
forest
entered the
the
forest.
same time as. I just feel like there's a more elegant way of doing that. I'm not a writer, but I can sense when things don't feel right. At least I would hope that I could after watching so much Star Wars. And that just didn't feel like cutting to them and not hearing anything from them just felt a little off. And it was such a short sequence, it just felt unnecessary. And I think the same can be said about the ideas of like what you're talking about, of a character being like, I don't believe I should do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this. And so hopefully we can just sort of, we're past that now. This was the final episode that us as critics actually got. So everyone's all caught up now. We're all caught up and going in completely fresh into episode 5. So there's just so much that excites me about what this could be. And I think it's tough to balance, setup and reveals in mystery box shows. But I do think last week did a really good job with that, and this week didn't. And I thought the whole episode just kind of really felt like, let's get to the ending sequence, because that ending sequence was bomb. So I enjoyed the ending. I hope I can't wait to see how they choose to follow it up next week. But dude, day, night, bro. You might have just written the ultimate thing. I really hope that that's what it is. That would be really cool. But that is it for this week's episode of Watch Club for Star Wars The Acolyte. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or your predictions on the shows we cover in Watch Club, well, you don't have to come face to face with a toothy, smiling Dark Master. Instead, Darcy, can you let our acolytes know how they can reach us by holomessage?
For sure. They can reach us by holomessage at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or if that's too much like being forced into exile on the planet Kofar to study some ancient witch magic, you can reach out to us on Twitter or X at GeekcentricYT or over on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
Ancient witch definitely don't want to be stranded on Kofar learning about ancient witch magic. I don't care how enlightening it is. It didn't look like a lot of fun. And what was he making? What was that food? Like a salad or like some weird stew?
I don't know. Herbal remedy. It was probably something like Soylent, where it's just the bare minimum sustenance you need to survive. He seemed like he was living a very minimalist life as he's studying those spirals and stuff.
Interesting. We also have our Discord that you can join using the link in our description. Let's keep the conversation going. I want to hear the speculation that you have. We'd love to hear from you. And, just as far as this show is concerned, just remember to keep it respectful. Again, you can have all the criticisms you want of the writing of the show, but we just ask that you kind of, talk about this show as a respectful Star Wars fan. And I think the people that listen to this podcast are all pretty respectful, so should be good. We also have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies and TV shows, including our recent spoiler-free reviews for House of the Dragon Season 2. Ooh, ooh. Darcy and Kevin reviewed that one. I watched the first episode of it, and I wanted to, cry and puke and freak out all at the same time in the final moments of that episode. Unbelievable. So happy to be back with that show. We also have our spoiler-free reviews for Inside Out 2, The Boys Season 4, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Doctor Who, which is also coming up to its finale. Very intriguing. And Star Wars Tales of the Empire. We've got some great interviews out now, like our most recent interviews with the Canadian animators from Pixar who worked on Inside Out 2. Justin had a great chance to chat with them about their roles at Pixar, the emotions that are driving their consoles, and their favorite Pixar movies. So definitely check out his interview with Rebecca McVeigh and Scott Edelman and on either YouTube or on your podcast service of choice. They should be available on both. Leave a 5-star review, a like, a comment, share one of our videos. Because the Hot Geek Summer, Darcy, there's been some Hot Geek heat warnings. I don't know if you got this on my phone. It was like, yo, it's getting too geeky up in here, bro. You best get into some shade.
I don't have the apps you have because I was just getting the heat warnings for where we are.
I got the geeky heat warning. So, if you want to protect yourself from the shade, there's no better place to be than right here, listening to our silly voices. And we've got our Watch Club for episode 5 coming next week. So stoked! Can't wait to see what happens. Darcy, thank you so much for joining me for this Watch Club. And as we say, you're with me.
I'm with you.
Always one.
But born as two.